Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Hosea chapters 5 through 8.
Yep, we're gonna read the Bible.
As is tradition.
Indeed.
And there's some stuff that I could say about the chapter.
Is there really?
Yeah, there is.
Or is there nothing you could say about the chapter?
No, there's some stuff.
Really?
Yeah, especially.
Or is there nothing?
Especially.
Prove it.
So chapter 5, verses 1 through 7 is to be distinguished from the preceding scene, as the enlarged circle of addresses indicates. Verse 1 mentions the royal court together with the priests and other representatives of Israel. Correspondingly, the geographical radius of the accusations is extended. Instead of the cultic places Bethel and Gilgal, which we covered last week, situated close by, which were main points of danger to the population of Ephraim, Hosea names 3 cities located much farther away as places of the leader's particular sins. Since he refers to the court, Hosea most likely spoke these words in Samaria, which was the capital of Israel, the northern region. So, yeah, 5:7 is, or 5:1 through 7 is its own thing. What translation do you have, though?
I have the King James version of the Bible, the best version, the only true and perfect translation worked on by hundreds of translators.
Of course, it's a perfect translation. We have that one. We don't even need this one, but I have it anyways, apparently. I have the English Standard Version.
We also have
Redundant.
the Hebrew Bible translation with commentary by Robert Alter.
We have Erdman's commentary on the Bible. We have I think this is from Hans Walter Wolff, right?
Well, it's from Hermenia, but yes,
well, yeah,
it's written by Wolff.
Yes, from Hermenia, the commentary and translation. We also have the Holy Scriptures according to some Jews and the New King James Version.
Incredible. All of the books that you would ever need in your life.
Those are it, by the way. There are no other books that you would ever need. Those are the only
top 10
ones.
List of books you would need on a deserted island. These are
it's
those
these right there, right here. There are maybe a couple spaces left over, but you know what
We also have
these are
the
really all we need.
Septuagint.
We do have the Septuagint
It's
in case we need that.
over there.
Yeah.
There's also a pile of books, but we'll talk about that some other time.
We have the Oxford Companion to the Bible.
Which we've used usefully once, maybe.
Yeah,
we've tried to use it before. It's just not. It's not really great for our purposes. And
it's good for people who haven't read the Bible.
That's true. And then next week I'm going to bring in another book. I'm going to try to actually read a book in a week. See if I have the capability to do that.
Wow,
crazy.
I usually read a lot slower than that. So
sorry to hear you can't finish books in sittings. Ruben
no, I
certainly
can't.
Can. I've seen him do it.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Like fiction, because fiction is easy. You have nonfiction. It's generally
dense.
Yeah, as you take longer to read, your recall is going to be better anyway, because you have more time
reading it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more useful for me to take it slow when I'm reading through things.
Yep.
So
I mean, look at this show.
Yeah, right. Look at exactly.
How long
it takes
is
a while.
it taking us to read one book?
And we reread sections when we have to, because we want to know exactly what's written in there. Yeah, but next week I'm going to be bringing in another book for some extra commentary, and it's mostly about Hosea and the cult of Baal.
Oh.
And it's I mean, I read over the introduction, and it's fairly interesting. So
hold on to your balls, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, as we get started here. So I guess nothing in here is really too.
I also
enjoyed
enjoyed the dude threatening the flying cow with the dagger in the background.
Yeah, you get that cow.
Yep. Speaking of flying cows.
Oh, are you gonna? That's not gonna work, or is it? Oh, wow, it is. Okay, good job.
It's missing exactly the legs it needs to be missing.
All right. Well, thank you. Oh shit.
Oh, fuck.
Whatever. Well, there goes ball. So, yeah, we can. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing I needed to cover about the setting of the chapter that we're going over, or at least the section. So we can hop into the readings whenever with Hosea 5.
I mean, we can do it whenever. We don't need to do it right now.
We probably should. Otherwise, it's gonna be
hang
dead
out
air.
for a while.
It's showing up on the top.
Yeah, so that means we have to do it now.
Oh, wow. All right, chapter 5. Hear ye this, O priests, and hearken, ye house of Israel, and give ear, O house of the king, for judgment is toward you, because ye have been a snare on Mizpah, and a net spread upon Tabor. And the revolters are profound to make slaughter, though I have been a rebuker of them all.
Oh, so this is kind of different here. Yeah, and the revolters have gone deep into slaughter, but I will discipline all of them. The translation in altar is a little bit different. It says, so yeah, and an outspread net against Tabor, and have dug a deep pit at Shittim.
Oh.
So the Masoretic text shows an obscured word, Setim, but most scholars conclude this is a mistake for the well-attested place name Shittim, which would make it plausibly the third in a series of place names here.
All right.
Yeah.
I know Ephraim and Israel is not hid from me. For now, O Ephraim, thou committest whoredom, and Israel is defiled. They will not frame their doings to turn unto their God, for the spirit of whoredoms is in the midst of them, and they have not known the Lord. And the pride of Israel doth testify to his face. Therefore shall Israel and Ephraim fall in their iniquity. Judah also shall fall with them.
So, speaking as a witness for Israel's chastiser, the prophet further explains the legal situation. Perhaps contemptuous words interrupted the prophet as he spoke, in turn provoking a new saying about Israel's pride. The expression testify against is reminiscent of such a rejoinder. It denotes a witness's incriminating statement against an accused person. The defense incriminates himself. I guess that might be a middle form. The pride of Israel and of her dignitaries is conclusive proof for the truth proclaimed. Pride is the evidence of the audience's inability to repent. Of course, what do they say all the time? Pride cometh before the fall, right?
Yeah.
That's a thing that people say.
Well,
Only prideful people, Lawrence.
Only those, yeah.
yeah. Or people who don't have very good balance.
That's true. It's true.
They shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord, but they shall not find him. He hath withdrawn himself from them.
So there is a good bit of kind of interesting commentary here in verse 6. So perhaps an arrogant interruption of Hosea's speech made reference to the numerous sacrificial animals the people bring to sanctuaries when they seek Yahweh. But Hosea reckons animal sacrifice as part of Israel's guilt. We can cross-reference 4, 8, and 13. In the and he puts it in quotes, in the Baalized sacrificial cult, quote, the offering is changed from being a sign of the extreme self-devotion and becomes a ransom from all true self-devotion. Though they seek Yahweh, they do not find him. Perhaps the expression seeking and not finding is reminiscent of specific motifs from the Baal myth of the absent divinity, for Hosea elsewhere makes polemical use of the language of Canaanite rituals.
They have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. Now shall a month devour them with their portions. So there's some commentary about this in Eerdmans here.
Yeah, although the translation in ESV is a new moon.
Yes, and that is noteworthy because the New Moon Festival is supposed to be a joyful occasion, but instead, now it's bringing disaster.
Like a flying cow or something.
And you can see the New Moon Festival, Psalm 81, verses 1 through 3.
Yeah, there's actually more on this section from Alter here. This clause is mysterious. Now the new moon shall consume them. Many emendations have been proposed for new moon Hodesh, but none is very convincing. Perhaps the reference is, of course, the reference, as was discussed before, is to the new moon celebrations, tainted with pagan practices that will turn into catastrophes when God carries out judgment against these people.
Now,
Classic sinning of Israel.
Yes. Eerdmans categorizes this chapter as being 2 parts, and we have just finished the first part, and are now going into the second part.
Okay.
Blow ye the cornet in Gibeah, and the trumpet in Ramah.
Yeah, the horn in Gibeah.
Yeah. We know what a cornet is.
A cornet?
Yeah. Cry aloud at Bethaven. After thee, O Benjamin. Ooh, nice rhyme.
Yeah, and I think Bethaven is the house of wickedness, right? I think we covered that last week, maybe.
I think so. We might not have.
Okay, well, I remember going over it in a video somewhere.
No,
I think it's
in
actually
our hundreds of videos.
No, in the Golden Calf one. In the Golden Calf one, I covered that one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ephraim shall be desolate in the day of rebuke. Among the tribes of Israel have I made known that which will surely be. The princes of Judah were like them that remove the bound. Therefore I will pour out my wrath upon them like water.
Yeah, like those who move the landmark.
So conquerors, right?
Moving stone boundary markers in order to lay claim to land that belongs to someone else is strictly forbidden. See Deuteronomy 27:17. The nobles of Judah are accused of expropriating land, though not necessarily by shifting boundary markers. Why Judah is introduced here is not entirely clear.
So Eerdmans points out that the context is the Syro-Ephraimite War of 734 to 732 BC, in which Ephraim with Syria and Judah were protagonists.
There is further commentary here on that. So it should not be supposed that these towns were captured only weeks earlier when the Syro-Ephraimite forces were on their way to attack Jerusalem. Given the conditions noted, Hosea's alarm is more intelligible if the towns belong to the northern kingdom. Tiglath-Pileser's success in the north gave Ahaz courage after several powerless decades, again to move the northern boundary in accordance with Jerusalem's old need for protection. Or did Tiglath-Pileser III himself make room for his longtime vassal Ahaz to advance as far as Ephraim?
Bethaven, house of nothingness.
Nothingness, okay.
Yes.
I think I've also heard it
Sounds like a
wickedness.
nihilist cult.
Yeah, that's the new cult. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh wait, no, it would be an old cult, right? Because
Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment because he willingly walked after the commandment. Therefore will I be unto Ephraim as a moth, and to the house of Judah as rottenness. When Ephraim saw his sickness, and Judah saw his wound, then went Ephraim to the Assyrian, and sent to King Jareb. Yet could he not heal you, nor cure you of your wound.
So that was verse 13, right?
Yeah.
So you had King Jareb. I just had great king. So let's see. Verse.
See how Alter translates it.
Okay. So that's verse 13. It does say King Jareb. So this term is obscure. It might be a proper name, as tentatively assumed in this translation, or it might be a peculiar formation from the verbal stem that means to quarrel or to contest. The context, however, suggests turning to a person in power for help. And I don't think there's really much... there's not actually... Right now, I'm not seeing any commentary on this from Hermenia, but if I find it, I'll say something.
All right. For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. I, even I, will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him. I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. Nice rhyme. In their affliction, they will seek me early.
So, with his prey, the lion withdraws himself to his place of hiding. In addition to this metaphor, the threat may contain motifs from the Canaanite myth of the disappearing god. We did hit on that just a little bit ago. The metaphor is not continued with further reference to the fate of the prey. Instead, it is Yahweh's departure that results in the destruction of land and people.
And the lion imagery is frequently associated with kingship.
Yep.
And is therefore appropriate in this context, which carries the implication that Israel ignores its true king and has sought help instead from the great king, which is a standard epithet for the king of Assyria.
I mean, that does certainly add some context there.
Yeah. So that is the end of chapter 5. If you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share it with friends, family, neighbors, etc.
You know what? Yeah, that'd be great for your family and your neighbors and everyone else to have exactly this.
Share it with
your etc., especially your etc.
Mail copies of our URL to your local embassy.
You know what? Yeah, that's a great idea. In fact, that would stimulate peace negotiations.
Yes.
Wow. So, for some reason, I don't know why, but it would.
It's because of how peaceful we are.
We've always been peaceful here.
You guys have not been violent at all. You've only been.
Shut up! I'll beat the shit out of you.
Haven't yet.
Kill him. Off with his head.
Slaughter.
Just words, guys. Just words. That's all you got.
So 6:1 through 6 consists of two sharply differentiated sections, 1 through 3 and 4 through 6. Much discussion has centered on the connection between them, an issue which depends on the interpretation of verses 1 through 3. Do these verses represent true repentance or false complacency? The answer turns on the theology expressed here is genuinely Yahwistic, a vehicle of repentance framed by the prophet for the people in response to 5:15, or whether it is in essence mechanistic and manipulative, reflecting Canaanite ideas and denying and manipulative, reflecting Canaanite ideas and denying Yahweh's sovereign freedom. The negative evaluation of both Ephraim and Judah in 4 through 6 suggests that the latter is the correct view.
All right, so chapter 6, here we go. Come, let us return to the Lord.
So, finish the verse.
For he has torn us, that he may heal us. He has struck us down, and he will bind us up.
So this opens a response from the people of Israel until the end of verse 3. They imagine that their present suffering will be of brief duration and that God will heal their wounds and revive them. And God's response begins in verse 4.
After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live before him. Very interesting verse there.
Yes, and revive is apparently the wrong translation.
Okay.
Now, Alter does use revive, but in Hermenia here, he will preserve our life in verse 2a is probably part of the last three stresses in verse 1. The verses concern one who's been wounded but still alive. Here, therefore, Pael does not mean to make alive. Rather, it has its usual meaning of preserve alive.
Is there more about the 2 days and the 3 days? Or the third day, I guess?
The following temporal clauses then form the first line of the three-stress bicolon that closes the first strophe. The line is tautological. After 2 days is equal to on the third day. On the third day,
sure, yeah.
that is, in a short time, Yahweh will rise up from their sick beds, those who have been wounded and cared for. It is then certain that they continue to live in Yahweh's presence. The expression originates from the idea that in death one is separated from Yahweh. Accordingly, a resurrection from the dead is not spoken of.
Okay, so this is closer to the Valley of Dry Bones thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That we may live before him. Let us press on to know the Lord. His going out is sure as the dawn. He will come to us as the showers, as the spring rains that water the earth.
So, as often happens in the Bible, there's a pun hiding close to the surface.
Of course.
God's instruction to humankind, the word translated as shower or rain here, also means instruct.
Oh.
And it's life-giving, like rain. But the verb for teach or instruct, yoreh, is also a homonym of the noun that means former rain, often paired with malkosh, latter rain. One should also note that in these two lines, God is compared first to the sun and then to the rain, both giving life to the earth.
So now we're into verse 4 here.
Yeah, also, the second strophe here more clearly echoes mythological motifs. First, the introduction in the cohortative, especially with the word let us seek, recalls the motif of seeking the absent or sleeping God. The similes of the breaking of dawn or the seasonal return of the first autumn showers and of the late spring rains reveal nature mythical thinking influenced by the Canaanite religion. The confidence of Israel's hope is emphasized by the series of similes. If Israel celebrated this day of repentance during the dangerous period of 733, its hope may have been nourished by Tiglath-Pileser III's recognition of King Hoshea ben Elah as his vassal.
What shall I do with you, O Ephraim? What shall I do with you, O Judah? Your love is like a morning cloud, like the dew that goes early away.
So now God is picking up on the nature similes and returning them to the Israelites.
Therefore, I have hewn them by the prophets. I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and my judgment goes forth as the light.
So these would presumably be false prophets. Now, the Masoretic text lacks the particle that means like. So this would just be like light, or in Alter's translation here, if the Masoretic text were used, it would say, and your sentence will come out light instead of like light.
Okay.
A single letter.
So it would just be there'd just be a metaphor and not a simile.
Right, but the single letter kaf has probably been dropped through haplography because the immediately preceding Hebrew word ends in a kaf.
Ah, okay. See, that's why I like textual criticism, stuff like that. For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. So, of course, we've seen this kind of thing a lot where a good chunk of the book has stuff where like, oh, you should be sacrificing to Yahweh, right? But then there are other parts that are like sacrifices are meaningless, like they don't do anything for you or for the faith. So this is indicative of changing environments.
Yes, and there is a bit of commentary here. So 4 through 6 are both lament and accusation. The negative response to the rhetorical questions of verse 4 forms a striking contrast to the similar question in 11:8. At issue in verse 6 is not the abolition of sacrifice, but the emptiness of ritual actions without corresponding commitment. Now, there's more extensive commentary in here. And the gist of it says that it's clear with this didactic statement, Hosea discloses the significance of Israel's cult as well as her history. In the kind of worship he desires, Yahweh is not satisfied with pious rituals. In genuine worship, God's relationship to his people is experienced, for there his deeds in history and his instructions for life are represented. Such worship, entirely different from the ritual sacrifice and penitence cited here, would have an effect on Israel's political relationships with foreign powers and with her brother Judah. According to Hosea's thinking, when Israel collapses, the priests ought to recite the stories of the Exodus from Egypt or the stories from the wilderness wanderings and the gifts of the land. As long as Israel does not regard her history and worship as bound up exclusively with the God proclaimed in Israel, Yahweh will chastise her still further with the severe weapon of prophecy, which makes her history a history of judgment. Of importance to Hosea is the relationship between Israel and her God, who acts on her behalf. Therefore, the nuance of difference between his didactic statement and a surprisingly similar sentence from Egyptian wisdom is not unimportant. This is the statement.
Okay.
More acceptable is the character of one upright of heart than the ox of the evildoer. Act for the God, that he may act similarly for thee. This basic statement about the will of Yahweh in verse 6 reads like a manifesto of the prophetic Levitic opposition party, which we assumed stands in the background of 4:6. This group struggles simultaneously against the cultic practice and the political current in Israel. We saw already in 5:1 that an official alliance of priests and court officials long since stood opposed to them. Now, in the cultic solemnities following the critical period of Israel's collapse, this again becomes apparent.
And you talked about the wilderness stuff earlier, so let's bring it back to the Torah again with verse 7. But like Adam, they transgressed the covenant. There they dealt faithlessly with me. So it's interesting that they say Adam here.
Right, and Alter does not say Adam.
Yeah, does he just say man, the sins of man or something like that?
Yeah, he says, like humankind. He says, this sounds a bit odd, but it may express the idea that humankind has a proclivity for treachery, as David Kimchi proposed. Others amend Ket Adam to Bet Adam in Adam or Adma, construing the word as a place name.
Yeah, because we talked about that one before, right? Adama, I think we talked about that. So yeah, it would... That's very interesting. So some of them change it to a place, which would, yeah, I guess it would make sense with the second part of that verse, right? There they dealt faithlessly with me.
Yes, and Alter does note that.
Yeah. Okay. Gilead is a city of evildoers, tracked with blood. As robbers lie in wait for a man, so the priests band together. They murder on the way to Shechem. They commit villainy.
Ooh.
Now, we've seen some of this imagery before, the lying in wait stuff. What book was that in again? Was that in Proverbs? I think, yeah, it was in Proverbs, right?
Yeah, Hermenia does note...
Where
Proverbs 30, verse 20.
Is that where they're lying in wait? Like waiting to strike on the good people walking by?
Those
I'm not sure if that's where it is, but I do remember that.
Yeah.
That was like a major thing in the wisdom literature.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was in Proverbs. In the house of Israel, I have seen a horrible thing. Ephraim's whoredom is there. Israel is defiled. Of course.
Yeah, you read the part about them murdering on the road to Shechem?
Yeah, they murder on the way to Shechem.
So this is an irony because Shechem was supposed to be one of the towns of refuge.
Oh, shit. See, this is why these commentaries are nice. There's a whole layer there we would have missed.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about, the refuge cities, right? But there's no way we could have remembered all those.
Yeah, a lot of them were named.
Yeah.
The refuge cities, for those who don't remember, were those where if you were accused of a crime like murder, you would be able to go there and not be killed by people.
Yeah, and you'd wait there until your trial, basically.
Yeah.
For you also, O Judah, a harvest is appointed when I restore the fortunes of my people. I mean, that would make sense. Yeah. If you're bringing people back. Yeah.
Yes.
Now it looks like so that was the end of the chapter,
So
but it looks
also harvest denoting judgment in the sense of last hour is also found in Jeremiah 51:33.
and it seems like this section kind of extends through, I guess, the middle of chapter 7,
So
but it starts at verse 11.
This section extends into verse 2 of chapter 7.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense. Here.
Basically, it's a catalog of crimes, according to Eerdmans.
Dude, I love catalogs of crimes, don't you?
Yeah. It's my favorite literature.
the crime catalog variety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the YouTube video top 10 crime catalog lists. It's so good.
True crime is pretty great. But you know what?
I didn't say that at all.
No, I did. And by great, I mean just great to listen to.
Do you hear something?
I do hear something.
Whoa.
Oh, it's kind of out of nowhere.
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Ye gods.
Well, he came a little bit earlier than he usually does in the show. But thanks for
That's what
for
all
joining us,
the
Jesus.
Christians hope for.
Yeah, for Jesus to show up, and
No,
show
I
us
don't
the way.
think so. I think a couple of them hate that.
He's here though.
He's gone now.
I mean, perhaps some Christians in the audience can comment as to whether they are hoping
I
that
think Jason
Jesus
said he
shows
hated
up.
it, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah, maybe not in this context, but he showed up. He's right there. You guys saw it, right?
Yeah, so we're getting into chapter 7 now, which the beginning thereof is, part of that section that we just read.
Yeah, the 6:11 there, the very last verse.
So why don't I hop into it?
Okay.
When I would have healed Israel, then the iniquity of Ephraim was discovered, and the wickedness of Samaria. For they commit falsehood, and the thief cometh in, and the troop of robbers spoileth without. And they consider not in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness. Now their own doings have beset them about. They are before my face. That was verse 2. So now we're getting into a new section.
Oh, that's a whole new section?
Yeah.
All right,
which in 3 through 7, they detail some things in Eerdmans here.
I mean, sure, I guess I can talk about that. So apparently the theme changes here. Here, the wickedness condemned centers on the machinations at the royal court, in which kings were both instigators and victims of the palace revolutions which marred Israel's history in the years following the reign of Jeroboam II. The image of the... Oh, we'll get to that one in a bit.
Bill marred their histories.
What?
Why? Why did you... It cost you $0 to not say that. You did.
It cost me $0 to say it.
We'll see.
Yep. In fact, someone donate $1
No.
because I said that. Just to rub it in Lawrence's face.
Someone's gonna do that. If
Someone
you do,
might.
I have to write that down. It's irritating.
It's true.
Just specifically, this is for Reuben's joke.
Yep. Verse 3 here. They make the king glad with their wickedness, and the princes with their lies.
Yeah, so it probably refers to the violent overthrow of the king, which the prophet has condemned. Since Pekah's anti-Assyrian politics were unsuccessful, a new political line of submission was attempted by King Hoshea, who was prepared to become Assyria's vassal. With the deposition of the king, his court's military and civil officials are also replaced.
Do you remember Sammy Jenkins?
Yes.
Oh. Remember Sammy Jenkins?
Yeah, he's a
is
patron of
here.
ours too.
Yeah. Cool. They are all adulterers, as an oven heated by the baker, who ceaseth from raising after he hath kneaded the dough until it be leavened.
Yeah, so let's talk about this imagery here.
Now,
a little bit.
obviously, if we're carrying on from the idea that they should reference the Exodus,
You should only have unleavened bread.
right, that would imply that they should only have unleavened bread. Now, we have another reference to an oven here. The oven, obviously, is the food equivalent of a furnace. It's a hot place.
It is a hot place. That is absolutely true. So let's talk about that image here. So the image of the baker's oven signifies both the secret danger of smoldering conspiracy and the sudden conflagration of open violence. The imagery is vivid, but it is extended metaphor, not allegory.
Right.
And questions are as to the identity of the baker are inappropriate. I mean, yeah, I guess it makes sense because it's not really about the baker.
Right. The idea is the bread, which is the sins that are being left out to like rise up.
Yeah, bread sins.
Yeah, horrible.
Like if Ezekiel wouldn't have cooked his bread on shit.
Yeah, I remember that one. Also, one thing before something goes absolutely terribly wrong here. So this cord is going like it's behind your legs. So yeah, we got to get it out of there. Okay, you must like accidentally kicked it over behind you. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Nothing I have to do now.
in the day of our king, the princes have made him sick with bottles of wine. He stretched out his hand with scorners.
Yeah, so wine influences the they use the term mockers here, but yeah, scorners, adding fire to their heated emotions. The mockers are probably those who garrulously deride the prophet. There's another reference to that in chapter 9. The expression suggests that Hosea had to submit to interruptions in the course of this scene.
I mean, there's also the actual meaning of the verse, which is that princes get their kings drunk, right? Which is dangerous for leadership, of course.
No. You got to rule drunk.
Well, you remember what happened in Judith.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, where Judith got dude drunk and then cut his head off
Yeah.
with his own sword.
Yeah,
You remember.
I do.
It was a good time.
That was
How do
the
you thi-
entire point of the
How do
story.
you think? But how do you think czars were to rule if it weren't for the alcohol?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't. Okay.
No,
Whoa.
they just wouldn't. It wouldn't be possible. I mean, that's Russia, right?
Yeah.
The vodka
You need it.
is like the gasoline of the people.
Accurate. This is an accurate statement. It is. It's scientifically accurate, historically accurate. It's just true, guys.
Absolutely. For they have made ready their heart like an oven. Whiles they lie in wait, their baker sleepeth all the night. In the morning it burneth as a flaming fire.
Just like no one's paying attention to it, and then it just gets out of hand.
Yes. Don't fall asleep with the stove on.
No, bad idea. Or with the cigarette,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Especially if you're covered in alcohol.
Smoke responsibly.
They are all hot as an oven, and have devoured their judges. All their kings are fallen. There is none among them that calleth unto me. Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned.
Oh,
Man,
mixed.
what's up with the pastry and like
Oven.
all the oven references?
Yeah,
here?
so
You make pastries in the oven.
You know what?
Also, are you smoking yet?
Yeah, I bet that Hosea was hungry.
yeah, you know what? Yeah, I could see the author of this being pretty hungry. He's like, oh man, I want to be a prophet, but I also
I'm hungry.
really want some food. So the catchword Ephraim among the nations. I actually want to see some of the translations here. So it does say Ephraim mixes himself with the peoples. That it does say that, but I do want to see that maybe there's like a better translation because that seems like it could be interpreted in a few different ways.
We should give Jesus a couple more bucks and have him make a follow-up video.
We could do that, yeah.
And it would really catch most people off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be funny.
So it looks like the translation that Alter and Wolf adopt is the Ephraim among the nations one. So,
Well, the Eerdmans points out that the mixing is to continue with the cooking.
gotcha.
analogy,
Okay.
And that they're like ingredients that have been mixed with the nations.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is in all likelihood so it's a critique of the repeated quest for foreign alliances on the part of the Northern Kingdom.
Right.
And I'm just it really seems like that's the best way to put it. There is some more commentary on it, but it doesn't really add that much to it.
Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yea, gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth not. And the pride of Israel testifieth to his face. And they do not return to the Lord their God, nor seek him for all this. Ephraim also is like a silly dove without heart. They call to Egypt, they go to Assyria.
You silly dove.
Yeah, what? Why?
So Ephraim is like a dove, silly and without sense, calling to Egypt. Yeah, so of course one of the big issues in a book like in Isaiah, my bad, was that going to Egypt for help was a bad thing, and obviously it was clear since someone was saying something against it, it was already happening. So I'm guessing by this time it was also happening. And of course this stands. We were talking about this a long time ago already, but the alliance between Israel and then a few other nations, including Egypt, like they were trying to form an alliance there. So it seems like this is more evidence to that.
Yeah. When they shall go, I will spread my net upon them. I will bring them down as the fowls of the heaven. I will chastise them as their congregation hath heard. Woe unto them! For they have fled from me. Destruction unto them, because they have transgressed against me. Though I have redeemed them, yet they have spoken lies against me.
So the translation here is a little bit different. And I feel like in this case it does matter. So yours is I have redeemed them. The ESV has I would redeem them, but they speak lies against me. So that is verse 13, right?
Yeah. And that's significant because if it is I have redeemed them, then they're ignoring something that God's done. But if it's I would redeem them, then that's like a sign of how merciful God is, even though he's like, woe unto them, I'll bring destruction. Right.
Right. So yeah, woe to them, for they have wandered from me. Disaster for them, as they rebelled against me. Oh, okay. So this one's even different because it's formed like a question. Shall I redeem them when they have spoken against me lies?
Does Alter have commentary for that?
No.
Great.
I'm gonna check on Hermenia. You can keep reading while I look through this.
All right.
I'm gonna look at any like translation notes.
And they have not cried unto me with their heart when they howled upon their beds. They assemble themselves for corn and wine, and they rebel against me. Though I have bound and strengthened their arms, yet do they imagine mischief against me. They return, but not to the Most High. They are like a deceitful bow. Their princes shall fall by the sword for the rage of their tongue. This shall be their derision in the land of Egypt.
So there is some commentary here, although it is, once again, we have a slightly different translation. So I'm guessing the syntax is pretty messed up here. So, yet Israel expects Yahweh to liberate such rebels from their calamity. The brief adversative clause, quote, and I am supposed to redeem them, apparently returns again to the expectations and expressions of trust voiced in the penitential song, which had caused Yahweh's inner struggle over Israel's fate. Yet, after consideration of the attitude of the priests and the worshippers, the dealings of the court and its foreign policy, the words of repentance are exposed as lies. It is, of course, Yahweh's will to save the people, but it is precisely this, his saving will and his covenant loyalty, which set in bold relief the shamelessness of Israel's deceitful attempts at saving herself. Here, the word to redeem, originally belonging to the sphere of commercial law, similar to heal, means deliverance from physical danger. With respect to the use of this term for deliverance from Egypt, Deuteronomy apparently stands in a tradition which is first found in Hosea. If there is to be a true liberation of Israel, a new relationship to Yahweh must be established first by his judgment. The destruction denoted here recalls 5:9, where it says desolation. The disputations draw to a close. Evidence has now been publicly presented, which provides the motivation for the initial threats. So I can check on the like where he has like the text lined out and stuff. That was what, verse 13, 7:13?
I think so.
Yeah. So he has nothing on it. Great.
Wonderful.
Although
does the Septuagint?
We can check the Septuagint, although I would preface
because
this.
It has the Greek, so you should be able to
I can actually help
see
out there.
At least if it's a question or not.
Yeah, absolutely. But although that, once again, that is the Greek and not the original language here.
Right.
But I can check the Septuagint. So I don't know if you want to look for something about the sections that we already read or a section that we're going to get into. But I can, in fact, check the Septuagint. I can check the Greek version, at least see how the Greeks interpreted it. That was what, Hosea 7:13.
Yeah, so this is about a threat of total military destruction of Israel, which, of course, we know actually happens. The church should especially ponder 2 points. First, Hosea speaks to individuals only as members of the entire nation. The call to repentance of John the Baptist and Jesus was also spoken in the plural. Far from weakening, it is the plural, which constitutes a genuine seriousness. Behind this plural, there stands the seriousness of the great cause of God in the world. It is not a Christian interpretation of the text if we merely individualize it and forget that the path Christianity takes must be taken as the new people of God. Second, Hosea had to struggle with a calculated resistance to his indictment that was religious as well as political. There are times when one must oppose an overly secure faith, like that reflected in 6:1-3, with its shrewd intention to shape history to its own ends. In the New Testament era as well, the wrath of God is provoked by man's attempts to deal with periods of severe catastrophe by a coalition of political strategy and religious zeal. In all spheres of life, God wants his liberated people to acknowledge the guilt of false hope and disobedience. He wants them to look for help in the power of his love, and he wants them to do his will. According to Hosea, only such a community of God has heart, i.e. the ability to orient themselves rationally in the world.
Yeah, you gotta have heart.
So the Greek here is it's a little bit weird because usually the phrase I have just literally means like it's a very literal one.
It
like
belongs to me.
I have
I am
this
in
book.
possession of.
Yeah, it means like I have this book, right? Like it's a very physical thing. So I like a literal. Or no, this one. Okay, so I think it's I will save them.
And is that how they translate it there?
I think it's I will. Let me see here, verse 13. Yeah, okay, so actually hold on. This would be but I saved them. It's a past tense, never mind. Or sorry, an imperfect. Yeah. So there's that.
Hey, if you're enjoying the stream so far, like, comment, subscribe. How do you know that the book was written by someone? Well, because we have books that were physically written by someone. The Septuagint was written by someone.
It certainly
the
was.
Masoretic text was written by someone. The books that you read, the Bible, is translated from manuscripts that were written by people.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes multiple someones.
Yeah. Also, someone had to write it down.
Yeah.
So. Oh, okay. We're on to this now. How do we know the universe is created? That is begging the question.
Yeah.
There's that.
Which is a logical fallacy.
It is. So we can continue on with the reading then?
Yeah, why don't you do so?
All right, sure.
In fact,
I think this goes with that one.
yeah, I'm going to hop to the restroom real quick.
Oh, are you?
Commentary, man.
Yeah, well.
That's the most important part of this show.
Well, you know what?
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I guess I'll use this one then. Yeah. So we're on chapter 8 here, the final chapter of the day. Set the trumpet to your lips. One like a vulture is over the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and rebelled against my law. To me they cry, my God, we, Israel, know you. Israel has spurned the good. The enemy shall pursue him. And of course, this goes to the stuff that we've usually seen about once they transgress. Although some theology, it seems like in Hosea, sometimes it can lean towards like, oh, this is just what happens when you don't have God. But then in other books, it seems like what they're saying is this is God's specific directed punishment towards Israel. Although in Hosea, it's kind of both, I guess. There are definitely times when it's viewed as a punishment, like a more direct punishment, and other times, like in the last chapter, I believe, or the chapter before that, where it was kind of meant to be like, oh, this is just what happens when you don't have God in the land. You get destroyed. So, where was I? They made kings, but not through me. They set up princes, but I knew it not. With their silver and gold, they made idols for their own destruction.
I thought he was all-knowing.
Oh, not in the house of God. He's got to be told about those things. No. So
This is how he's all-knowing. Everybody goes and tells him everything there.
Well, at least he is saying here that he didn't allow these kings to be set up. Now,
Did you have the statement like an eagle against the Lord's house?
I had one like a vulture is over the house of the Lord.
Okay, this clause is obscure. The probable referent is an invader of the kingdom of Israel, hence the sounding of the ram's horn is an alarm. In that case, the Lord's house would have to be the northern kingdom and not, as it usually means, the temple.
Okay, that makes sense. So on them making kings, these would probably be foreign kings, right?
Right, but it also says in Eerdmans, like a vulture or eagle over the Lord's house is generally understood to refer to military threats. The Hebrew is, however, grammatically difficult. A slight emendation produces a summons to the prophet, like a herald against the Lord's house. The people claim Yahweh as their God, right? Which affirms their identity as the chosen people, which is the point that Hosea has taken issue with. But they apparently are not living up to it.
Yeah, so of course the kings, if we're talking about like allowing kings through God, this of course the problem here being is that they weren't through God that these kings were appointed.
Right.
But if we go back to like
Samuel.
Yeah, right, it would be a totally different thing. He did say, fine, like you're not gonna like it, but go ahead and appoint
Yeah,
appoint
he
kings.
was initially against kings at all.
Yeah. But of course, the Deuteronomistic history was written after this.
Right.
After this was written, I should
Now,
say.
if we look at the Samuel story, like the general story is Saul and David.
Mhm.
I forget, was Saul chosen by God?
I think Saul was chosen by Samuel. He was ordained by Samuel, right?
Yeah, that's what I remember. I don't recall if he was actually chosen by God
Or the people.
or the people.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Because
don't remember.
if he wasn't chosen
He would
by
be a
God,
silly choice by God, right?
right? But David was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that plays into the same kind of narrative that's
Right.
being set up here.
Either way, so they have these kings that Yahweh doesn't like, and of course these idols.
Mm-hmm.
I have spurned your calf, O Samaria. My anger burns against them. How long will they be incapable of innocence?
So the calf is the icon that's used for worship in the northern kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
It corresponds to the cherubim in the southern kingdom. It's viewed by Judahite writers as an idol.
See, I would just straight up say this might just be a reference to the
Baal?
well, no, to the actual golden calves. That do you remember that Jeroboam set up?
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I am not convinced that that's like a fictional story or something. I think that's probably has like a grain of truth in it. Like maybe Jeroboam did in fact set up some kind of idol worship because I guess people already kind of did it by themselves, and we have physical evidence for this. We have like the bull site, for example. So we do have evidence that they were worshiping calves in the land for a while.
Well, hold on to the seat of your pants, because we're about to get into a very lengthy comment by Wolf here.
Okay.
So, the worship of idols and of Baal together constitute a worship of foreign gods. The exhortation in verse 5 makes this evident. Here, the prophet's struggle for Israel's return to Yahweh begins anew. Instead of rejecting the blessings of Yahweh's covenant, Samaria ought to reject its calf. The connection of verse 3a with 5a by the catchword reject and throw away should be noted. Those circles representative of the royal city now are directly addressed Samaria. Neither here nor elsewhere does Hosea use the word to denote the geographical area of Samaria. The broader use of the word cannot be found until after the Assyrian conquest of the city in 721. This corresponds with Assyrian usage whereby a province was named according to its capital city. But where was the calf of Samaria located? We possess no evidence that a calf ever stood in Samaria. Indeed, it is to be concluded from 2 Kings 10:26f that the Baal temple, erected by Ahab according to 1 Kings 16:32, never contained a calf idol. Thus, after Yehu's destruction of the temple and its transformation into latrines, 2 Kings 10:27, it is even less probable that the calf idol would have stood, for instance, in an official temple of Yahweh, or even in a private Canaanite cult of the old inhabitants of the city. Thus, we can hardly postulate the existence of such a cultic image in the city of Samaria only on the basis of the combination of the two words calf of Samaria in Hosea 8:5 and 6. Moreover, The statement in Amos 8:14 is too obscure to support this thesis. Hosea 10:5 is decisive evidence against this, for there the inhabitants of Samaria are represented as worshippers of the calf in Bethel. Thus, the calf of Samaria is to be conceived of as the idol Jeroboam I erected in Bethel, 1 Kings 12:29. Nor, according to 2 Kings 10:29, was it destroyed by Jehu, but was officially worshipped uninterruptedly down to the time of Hosea, according to 2 Kings 14:24. Accordingly, the calf of Samaria should be understood as another expression for royal sanctuary and temple of the kingdom, designating the temple of Bethel, Amos 7:13. The singular calf confirms the presumed period when Hosea delivered this saying. The calf of Dan, if it indeed had at one time a similar meaning for the capital city, ceased to exist after the invasion of Tiglath-Pileser. What was the shape of the calf? The word denotes a young bull at the peak of its youth. It probably did not have a scornful ring, although the word also denotes a helpless calf dependent upon its mother. Already in Ugarit, it could be compared with Baal. As with the heart of a cow towards her calf, as with the heart of an ewe toward her lamb, so is the heart of Anat toward Baal. In CTCA 3:341, Glil probably means the god Yam, Baal's enemy. Hence, the word is official cultic terminology rather than an intentional expression of derision, especially since Exodus, Deuteronomy, and 1 Kings use the same word. The image was probably constructed of a wooden center overlaid with gold leaf, since it could be burned, according to Exodus 32:20.
Yeah.
North provides the justification for using Exodus 32 to clarify the matter. Also, compare the word splinters in verse 6. There is no agreement as to the type of idol it was. Otto Eisfeld suggests that it was a staff crowned with the image of a calf, used as a standard to lead the cultic procession. It represented God as one who goes before his people as their leader. This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. To be sure, the only comparable material Eisfeld is able to cite is a mosaic of shell from Mari. On the other hand, there is evidence from the 8th century that in the reign of Syria, the calf commonly served as a pedestal for the gods, especially the storm god. Not to be excluded from consideration.
Yeah, that's true. You straight up see, I think it was it Baal? I think it may have been Baal, where he's literally standing on a bull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it was Baal. It could be some other god, but...
So the bull has been conceived as the pedestal for an idol, especially because of the calves of Bethel and Dan. They were, of course, erected in opposition to Jerusalem's ark, and like it, could have served as the empty throne for the divinity, who was intentionally left unrepresented. This may have been Jeroboam I's understanding of it. On the other hand, the following must be considered. The cultic invocations, behold your God, or this is your God, Hosea's antithesis, it is not God, the manner in which El is pictured in Ugarit as a bull, the fact that Baal's offspring is a bull. Finally, there is the image of the bull in Tel El Ashari, mentioned above, where it says that there's a body of a human being and the head of an animal. Certainly in Hosea as well, it is unquestionable that the calf was more than just a pedestal for the divinity. For Hosea's thought, probably too little is claimed when it is said that the bull is an attribute or symbol of the divinity and its strength. Hosea presupposes much more than the customary idea that the divinity itself was pictured and represented by the image of the calf. Thus, the worship of the calf image is itself evidence that the covenant has been broken. This thematic parallel in Exodus 32 confirms the connection of verses 1b and 5 in Hosea 8. Following the exhortation directly addressed to the leaders, a statement in the perfect tense concerning Yahweh's wrath serves to intensify the exhortation and provides its motivation. So they go on a bit here, but I think you understand the essential point. Bull imagery, of course, you made the video.
I did, yeah.
But Yeah, lots of little details there.
Yeah, absolutely. And
100% just made up and fabricated, guys. All bullshit.
Oh, wow. Wow. Brilliant. Amazing. Witty.
So yeah, it
Put
says
no effort into that.
It says, your calf rejects you, Samaria. My wrath against them flares. How long will they fail to be clean?
You know, and you were talking about it being, you mentioned it before where it was like saying calf instead of like bull was, you know, a way to.
Yes, it could be a polemic. The implication is that it's dependent.
A baby. Yeah. It's just it's like, yeah, you're a bull, but you're like a baby bull. Look at you. You think you're so tough. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that has been proposed as well. So,
you're at like verse 5.
Am I? Okay.
Verse 6.
Verse 6 now. For it is from Israel, a craftsman made it. It is not God. The calf of Samaria shall be broken to pieces. For they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. The standing grain has no heads. It shall yield no flour. If it were to yield, strangers would devour it. So it's for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Israel is swallowed up.
Well, that follows with the curse in Deuteronomy, where it says that they will plant fields, but foreigners will eat it. They won't eat the fruits of their own labor.
Gotcha. Israel is swallowed up. Already they are among the nations as a useless vessel. For they have gone up to Assyria, a wild donkey wandering alone. Ephraim has hired lovers.
So the wild ass figures in biblical poetry as a creature that cannot be tamed, living solitary in the wilderness. Israel's seeking an accommodation with Assyria, represented here as a courtship, manifests its proclivity to go it alone, ignoring both prudent counsel and God's instructions. Also, yours says a useless vessel.
Yes.
Alter translates it as like a vessel no one wants.
Oh, wow. That's kind of mean.
Yeah.
For they have gone up to Assyria, a wild donkey wandering alone. Ephraim has hired lovers, though they hire allies among the nations. I will soon gather them up, and the king and princes shall soon writhe because of the tribute. Because Ephraim has multiplied altars for sinning, they have become to him altars for sinning. Were I to write for him my laws by the 10,000s, they would be regarded as a strange thing. By the 10,000s? Like, is that how many laws he has, or?
The implication is that even if my commandments were thoroughly explained, like, they would still regard it as
a strange thing.
A strange thing, which could mean foreign.
Yeah.
Foreign to them.
It would make sense as foreign. That's often pretty much interchangeable.
Yeah.
Strangers, foreigners. As for my sacrificial offerings, they sacrifice meat and eat it. But the Lord does not accept them. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. They shall return to Egypt.
So
that's the thing they're not supposed to do, guys.
So
they're not supposed to go back to Egypt.
So
that's a bad thing.
Are they going to build high places too right after that?
Yep.
So they view the sacrifice not as a means of expressing devotion to God, but merely as a source of meals.
Wow. Sounds like Leviticus to me.
Now, them going back to Egypt could be understood figuratively. They shall return to the condition of slavery. The likely candidate for enslavers would be the Assyrians.
But going back to Egypt is a bad thing. You're specifically said to not go back to Egypt.
Yeah. Eerdmans isn't being useful. So.
Okay, that's totally fair. That sounds like something that would happen with Eerdmans.
Yeah.
So the last verse here. For Israel has forgotten his maker.
Oh, hold on.
Go ahead, yeah.
Egypt in Hosea. This is an aside that they have.
Like a
here.
little excursus on it?
Yeah. Hosea mentions Egypt a total of 13 times. 5 of these unequivocally recall the beginning of the saving history, while 5 are parallel to Assyria. In the 3 remaining examples, Egypt appears alone. However, there is no clear or even exclusive reference to its connection with the saving history. In several passages, Egypt and Assyria stand parallel. One might at first suppose that Egypt, typical of Israel's saving history, merely stands for Assyria, the contemporary world power. But this interpretation is not possible. In 7:11, since the metaphor of the dove fluttering to and fro is meaningful only if Egypt, the same as Assyria, is mentioned as a contemporary political power. Likewise, in 12:2, Israel's treaty partner, Assyria, stands next to her trade partner, Egypt, to whom she delivers oil. If we take only this into account, it is more likely that the three other passages also place Egypt and Assyria parallel as current political powers, providing the statements themselves permit such an interpretation.
Hello, Matthew. You were
hello,
very
Matthew.
late.
Thanks for joining us, though.
So, with respect to a number of passages, it must be decided whether all of them, like 2:17, announce future events in the light of ancient saving history or in relationship to concrete political events of that time. In view of 7:13, the latter is certain, first of all, for 7:16.
So for context, 2:17, for I will remove the names of the balls from her mouth, which is still hilarious to me. In fact, that should be the next quote of the day. And they shall be remembered by name no more.
Amazing quote.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
And Matthew, since you're such a good student, we won't mark you down as tardy even though you were so late.
So, yeah, the point being that there's a lot of comparisons between Assyria and Egypt that occur in this
Hosea,
book.
yeah.
So it is what it is.
All right, so on to the final verse here, I suppose.
Yeah.
So verse 14. For Israel has forgotten his maker and built palaces, and Judah has multiplied fortified cities. So I will send a fire upon his cities, and it shall devour her strongholds. It's interesting how it goes. So I don't know what the Hebrew here is, but so I will send a fire upon his cities, and it shall devour her strongholds.
So the different suffixes must be noted. His cities are probably the cities of both the people of Israel and Judah. Her castles are those of the cities.
Okay, so the cities then would be feminine, but the cities belong to the people, which is masculine.
So the strongholds would be referring to belongings of the cities, which are feminine.
Yeah.
And the people is masculine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But it is I don't know. Would off-putting be the right word there? I don't know. It was a little weird.
Uncanny.
I don't know if uncanny would be it, but it was a little weird.
Peculiar.
Yes.
Strange. Odd.
Funky. Does
Bizarre.
that work? Bizarre. Yeah. All right. But either way,
Curious.
that was the end of chapter 8. So thank you everyone for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. All of it really does help us a lot. Hosea is not bad.
No, it's not terrible.
It's no Enoch.
Yeah, it's no
Man.
Enoch. Yeah, absolutely.
Has that been not a snoozer?
So
So you guys should join us on Friday to listen to Second Enoch.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty out there.
Well, also, like, the books of Enoch, right? First Enoch, Second Enoch, Third Enoch. They are a completely different kind of literature.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So thank you,
Tomic, thank you once again. Always coming in here with that.
We'll
Thank you.
return to your question momentarily after I get done talking about Enoch, right? So Enoch, these books are Heckelot literature, right? They have to do with the organization of heaven and images of what heaven is like. And they serve like the entire genre of Heckelot literature serves as the basis of Kabbalistic practice, right? So, like,
founded on apocalypticism.
yeah.
At least in a revelatory sense.
Yeah. It's definitely revelatory. The Kabbalistic practice is like highly mystical, and so apocalyptic writings would be relevant to them because they try to do mysticism,
Yeah.
which would involve things like seeing visions, right? So that's a whole different thing. Consequently, because it's an entirely different kind of literature, it's different than the things that we're going to run into.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
Bible.
Like we have like prophetic stuff, which is different from the wisdom, which is different from apocalypse. Pretty different there, I know.
Yeah.
So,
but it's even different than other apocalypses because
well, yeah, every apocalypse, like the genre apocalypse, is pretty hard to like put into one box. But it's
Remember the animal apocalypse?
yeah.
Was
But
that in Maccabees?
no, that was in First Enoch.
That
Yeah.
was in First Enoch. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Which was pretty long.
It was,
actually.
yes. So the word apocalypsis, the Greek one, means to reveal. It means a revelation, a revealing, an unveiling.
Yeah,
so it
the
literally
Hecalote
means
would be a subdivision of apocalypse. But like in terms of other apocalypses, what makes the Hecalote specific is that it has to do with like visions of divine places.
yeah, which is different than. Well, yeah, it's not your standard apocalypse.
Yeah.
But it's still nonetheless an apocalypse.
Now, were stories like Jonah, Esther, Judith, and Tobit originally thought of as pious fiction?
So it's kind of hard to say for some of them. Some of them maybe were written as like a comedy. So like Esther, especially, there's a case to be made that it was a comedic work.
Well, I mean, Esther even appears in the writings, which, that's like saying that, yeah, it's fiction. Right?
Yeah, so it's of course every book is a little bit different.
Now,
but
Jonah,
in some sense it would have been pious fiction. I'm not sure about Jonah, but
Jonah is in the prophets, so I suppose Jonah would be regarded as the other prophets were, at least by the group that made the canonization, right? But like Judith and Tobit were definitely always thought of as fiction.
Yeah.
Unless, maybe there's like a
And
rare,
they were kind of later books as well.
right.
So
Esther
Jonah
too.
Well,
Esther's a really late
Esther,
book.
it's kind of hard to tell with Esther, right? Because like you could place it like just after a certain time period, or like it does. We're not 100% sure when like Esther was written.
Yeah, but the oldest manuscripts are pretty recent.
Yeah. For Esther?
For Esther, yeah. We went over that when we were talking about Esther.
And there are a lot of different versions of them too.
Yeah.
Because you have the alpha text, you have which is like a separate thing. It's like much shorter, really condensed. And then you have the Masoretic version and the Septuagint one, I believe too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the textual history of Esther is really weird. If you do want something good on Esther specifically, there's Anthony Tomasino's work on it, which we did have on hand while we were reading Esther. But yeah, I'm not so sure about Jonah. I would say that the other books, I think that they would have been written as, kind of a pious fiction would make sense. Whether or not it be a comedy or perhaps a certain, for Esther, like I said, it's a really wonky book, scholarly speaking. Like we can't even exactly figure out the genre as well. Could be a comedy, could be wisdom literature. It doesn't look like any specific kind of literature is the thing with Esther. So trying to put it in a box is kind of weird. But yes, I would say that overall it is a pious fiction.
Now, some people regard Esther as a play.
Yeah, exactly. Like it could have been a few things, honestly.
Yeah.
It's very hard to place Esther into.
Now, when
to a
was
box
it
with that.
thought of as true? Now, that's a more difficult question.
That is
Because what do you mean by true, right?
Right, yeah.
There,
No,
So-
I'm going to ask, what does he mean by think? Thought, we really need to discuss.
Well, of
the
course,
some people,
of
like-
course, Chris would be unfamiliar with the concept of thinking.
Yeah, we need
but-
to start there.
But no, I mean, if you regard something as true, like there's people who regard the entire Bible as true, but not literally true,
Yeah.
right? Figuratively true, pointing towards true theology, or like
grains of truth. Yeah, like it's all. If you were to ask, like, when did they think that it was literally true? I wouldn't even think that that's most people now.
But there are people.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are some people like that.
Yeah, when people start to say that it happened
if
in
it's
real life.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say that's still there are definitely some people like that. I don't even think if we're talking, like, let's take Esther and Jonah, right? I don't know the amount of people that would think that's even the amount of Christians, I mean, that would think that those literally happened,
Mm-hmm.
like in the way that they were described. I
What
don't know
are you
the amount that
talking
would be.
about? Of course they happened. What, you think that the Jews celebrate Purim for no reason?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And yes, that is true. It's the only one where God's name isn't mentioned at all.
Yeah.
Pretty secular book. Although, like, it's clear that God is behind all the stuff. It's yeah. But either way, yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you like what we do,
Check us out on Patreon. Also, check out our Teespring through the merchandise thing that's about to pop up, because Chris is about to pin a thing. He's gonna pin a shirt, the platonic
that one?
form
Why?
of the T-shirt.
this is usually that one.
It's the perfect shirt.
I suppose it is the perfect shirt.
All other shirts just attempt to be like it.
So yeah, you know what? Or if you don't feel like going to the site, you could always win a T-shirt if you're a patron. That is a thing you can do.
And you could be on the show too.
Yeah, you
if
could be
you're
on
a
the
patron.
show. All of our video scripts, stuff like that.
You can also check out our Amazon wish list if you want to buy us more books to add to this table.
All the links are in the description.
Yes. And Facebook and Twitter.
Completely free to follow us on those platforms.
Yep. And be sure to check us out on Friday when we continue reading the book of Second Enoch.
the
The
very
book of the
trippy-
Secrets of Enoch.
Yeah, Secrets of Enoch. Yeah, the Slavonic Enoch.
Yep. And then eventually we'll do Third Enoch.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of pseudepigrapha now, so it's really nice. But yeah, all the links, if you missed any of that, are in the description. I don't think there's any other shilling to do. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you on Friday,
and then Sunday, and then Friday,
we
and then
do this show
yeah,
constantly.
Sunday, and then
It's
Friday,
a lot.
and then
We're here
Sunday.
for your